Laughter crashes through the chamber like a wave, rolling over desks and microphones, bouncing off marble walls. Faces turn, papers freeze mid-shuffle. The air trembles with disbelief and delight. Marjorie Taylor Greene's smirk falters. The words she flung moments ago hang heavy and useless. Across from her, Jasmine Crockett doesn't move, just the faintest lift of an eyebrow. Calm, composed, the eye of a political storm she herself has summoned. Cameras catch every breath. Aides' lips curl into restrained smiles. Even opponents can't hide the grin breaking through their composure. It isn't just laughter anymore, it's release. The kind that comes when someone finally says what everyone's been too polite, too afraid, too exhausted to say out loud. In that instant, power tilts. The performer becomes the punchline. The target becomes the truth-teller. Crockett stands there, still as glass, while the room around her erupts in sound and vindication. But this wasn't luck, or chance, or timing. This was years of restraint detonating in one perfect sentence. This was history disguised as humor. And to understand why this room erupted, why America couldn't stop watching, you have to see what led to this exact second. Washington had grown tired of its own noise. Hearings that once meant truth and accountability had turned into theater, where microphones became weapons, and facts were drowned beneath the roar of sound bites designed for cable news. The country watched, half amused, half exhausted, as the same faces performed the same outrage, and among them, none played the role louder than Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had perfected it, the sneer, the interruption, the headline-ready jab. Her words weren't built to inform, but to inflame. Every question dripped with performance, every statement crafted to divide. To her, politics wasn't about building, it was about broadcasting. But across that same chamber sat Jasmine Crockett, fighter, a woman who believed in reason over spectacle. Her tone was steady, her patience ironclad. When others shouted, she listened. When the room boiled, she cooled it. Her calm was her defiance, and her intellect was her weapon. To her, truth didn't need to be loud to be heard. So when both women found themselves in the same hearing, one chasing chaos, the other commanding calm, it felt less like coincidence and more like destiny. The cameras didn't know it yet, but something seismic was brewing. And when Greene decided to make it personal, she had no idea what storm she was about to unleash. For years, Marjorie Taylor Greene had built her brand on chaos. To her followers, she was a warrior, a voice unfiltered, unshaken, unbound by the rules of civility. To her critics, she was a storm without direction, raging louder each time the spotlight dimmed. She didn't debate. She detonated. Every hearing became a stage, every microphone a megaphone for grievance. Her rise wasn't powered by policy or persuasion, but by spectacle. The viral clips, the clashes, the sound bites that made allies cheer and opponents cringe. These were her victories. She thrived on confrontation, often mistaking it for courage. When others sought clarity, Greene sought conflict. When logic cornered her, she doubled down with volume. It wasn't evidence she wielded, but energy furious, unfocused, and addictive to watch. There was a pattern to it all. Interrupt, provoke, dominate the frame. It worked until it didn't. The louder she became, the thinner her arguments grew. Her facts unraveled under scrutiny. Her grandstanding started looking less like strength and more like insecurity dressed as defiance. Still, she couldn't stop. Attention had become her oxygen, outrage her currency. She mocked opponents she didn't understand and dismissed intellect she couldn't match. And when faced with women of color, lawyers, educators, public servants, she leaned on ridicule rather than respect. It was easier that way. She never had to face what truly threatened her: substance. So when Jasmine Crockett entered the chamber that day, Greene saw just another Democrat to steamroll, another opponent to bait into a shouting match. She didn't see the strategist behind the calm, the lawyer behind the smile, or the steel hidden beneath courtesy. In her mind, it was business as usual, a performance to dominate the news cycle. But this time, The cameras would capture something different the moment arrogance met its match. Before the headlines, before the viral moment that set the internet ablaze, Jasmine Crockett was already fighting battles most Americans would never see. In crowded courtrooms and forgotten neighborhoods, she stood for those who had no voice, no camera, and no chance, people buried beneath systems built to ignore them. A civil rights lawyer by calling, not convenience, she understood that real change rarely came with applause. It came with persistence. Crockett's path wasn't paved with privilege. It was carved through resistance. Long before Congress, she'd learned how to command a room without raising her voice, how to dismantle prejudice with precision instead of anger. Her gift wasn't just intelligence, it was restraint. While others sought headlines, she sought justice. While others performed for cameras, she performed for her clients. The single mothers, the wrongfully accused, the unseen. Her name began to circulate quietly among activists and community leaders, the one who doesn't back down. The courtroom became her first arena, her cross-examinations, her early speeches. Each victory strengthened her armor, but never hardened her heart. She carried empathy like a weapon, wielding it against indifference and arrogance alike. When she entered politics, that same poise translated seamlessly. Constituents saw in her something rare: authenticity. She spoke not for power but for principle. She didn't rehearse empathy, she radiated it. In a chamber filled with grandstanding and ego, her calm felt revolutionary. She didn't chase the spotlight. It found her. Crockett understood something most of her peers didn't. That silence, used wisely, could be louder than any insult. Every pause, every measured glance, every deliberate word, these were tools honed from years of standing her ground, and that composure would become her greatest weapon in a place built on noise. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene hurled her insult that day, Crockett didn't flinch, she calculated. She measured the room, the cameras, the witnesses, and the weight of the moment. She knew that reacting emotionally would give Greene the chaos she wanted. Instead, she waited, letting arrogance walk itself straight into its own undoing. Because Crockett had seen this play before. The mocking tone, the dismissal, masked as confidence. The attempt to reduce a woman of intellect to a caricature. But this time, the script would not end the same way. For every word Greene threw, Crockett had a truth sharper and steadier, waiting beneath the surface. Every second she stayed silent was a second. The crowd leaned closer. She wasn't losing ground, she was setting the trap. And that calculation would soon make congressional history. The hearing had already stretched into its fourth hour, papers shuffled, aides whispered, and the fluorescent lights hummed with the dull rhythm of exhaustion. What began as a policy discussion had devolved, as it often did, into political theater. At the far end of the dais, Marjorie Taylor Greene leaned into her microphone, eyes glinting with the thrill of a new target. The tension was subtle at first, the kind that slithers into a room before anyone notices. But when Greene spoke, subtlety evaporated. Her voice, sharp and self-assured, cut through the air. She wasn't asking a question, she was performing one. Her tone dripped with disdain disguised as curiosity, mocking the very idea that Jasmine Crockett could hold her own in this space. Some people, she sneered, seemed to care more about their eyelashes than about facts. A smirk followed, deliberate and cruel. The jab landed like a spark in a room full of dry paper. A few chuckles escaped from her side of the aisle, nervous, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. Cameras zoomed in. Every lens wanted the reaction shot, the clash they'd been waiting for. But Crockett didn't move. Her face remained still, her eyes fixed not on Greene, but through her. It wasn't indifference. It was discipline. The kind born from years of being underestimated and choosing, deliberately, not to give small minds the satisfaction of chaos. The silence that followed wasn't weakness. It was a storm gathering breath. Around the chamber, the air changed. The staffers sensed it first, the way people straightened their posture, the way side conversations froze mid-sentence. Even those who supported Greene began to feel the tension twist. The insult had crossed from political to personal, and the line between debate and disrespect had vanished. Greene, mistaking Crockett's composure for retreat, leaned back with satisfaction. She added a few more digs, each one louder, more self-congratulatory than the last. Her laughter echoed like nails across glass. She was performing not for truth, but for applause, the validation of the moment. She didn't see it yet, but the audience had already turned. Crockett finally moved slowly, deliberately. She leaned toward her microphone, fingers interlaced, voice calm as still water. The movement was small, but in that silence, it carried more power than Greene's entire tirade. The chair recognized her to respond, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. Reporters adjusted their cameras. Members of Congress leaned in, sensing the shift but not yet understanding it. Crockett inhaled once, steady, the kind of breath you take before delivering a closing argument, not a counterpunch. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did, a spark of quiet precision, a readiness that felt surgical. She had absorbed the insult, dissected it, and now she would return it not as vengeance, but as clarity. Across the room, Greene began to sense the change. Her smirk wavered, just slightly. It was the look of someone realizing too late that they'd wandered into deeper waters than they could swim. Every face in the chamber now turned to Crockett. The room that moments ago belonged to Greene's noise now belonged to Crockett's silence. Even the cameras seemed to lean forward, hungry to capture what would come next. Everyone expected her to fire back. No one expected what came next. The silence before Jasmine Crockett spoke was electric, an almost tangible pause that made every heartbeat in the room feel amplified. Even the cameras hesitated, lenses focused, waiting for motion. When she finally leaned forward, her voice came out smooth, measured, and cuttingly precise. "Madam Chair," she began, the calm in her tone disarming in its authority. "I'm just trying to understand how personal grooming became relevant to a discussion on policy, unless some members here are confusing professionalism with pettiness." A soft murmur rippled across the chamber low, a cautious laughter from those trying to suppress the reaction. Greene's smirk twitched, caught between indignation and disbelief. Crockett didn't glance her way. She spoke to the room, to the record, to the millions who would soon see this moment replayed on screens across the country. She continued, her phrasing sharp yet civil. "It's always fascinating how certain people claim to represent truth and strength, but the second they run out of facts, they reach for insults. It's a familiar pattern." Her voice lowered slightly, deliberate, the kind of tone that forces attention rather than demands it. "But I didn't come here to trade insults. I came here to serve." Now, the laughter was less restrained. A few members on Greene's side shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting toward the cameras. Crockett kept going, her rhythm precise, her composure unbreakable. Every word landed with the quiet devastation of someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. "What's funny?" she added, the faintest trace of a smile curling at the edge of her lips, "is that the people who scream the loudest about decorum are usually the first to forget what it looks like." This time, the room couldn't hold it. The laughter burst open loud, rolling, uncontainable. Some tried to hide their smiles behind papers, others didn't bother. The sound grew and echoed, filling every inch of the chamber with a mix of shock and satisfaction. Crockett simply folded her hands again, her posture unchanging. The laughter wasn't her cue to gloat, it was confirmation that she had shifted the balance. Greene sat, frozen, eyes darting, her practiced confidence dissolving into visible irritation. The cameras caught everything, the clenched jaw, the restless fingers, the realization that she had lost control of her own stage. As the laughter faded, Crockett delivered one final line, not shouted, not triumphant, just quietly final. "Now, can we get back to the business the American people sent us here to do?" It landed like a closing argument, a line that ended not just a moment, but an entire dynamic. The room stilled again, a mixture of respect and awe hanging in the air. For the first time in that hearing, Marjorie Taylor Greene had nothing to say. And as the room erupted once more, echoing with disbelief and delight, A different kind of noise began to build outside those walls. But while the room laughed, social media was about to roar. Within hours, the clip had left the marble halls of Congress and flooded the internet. What had begun as a tense exchange between two lawmakers had transformed into a cultural moment. Twitter erupted first. Hashtags like #Crockett Clapback, #Mic Drop in Congress, and #Lashes of Justice trended within minutes. Millions replayed every second of Jasmine Crockett's calm dismantling of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Commentators quickly crowned it the takedown of the year. Analysts dissected not just her words, but the precision in her timing, the restraint in her tone, the quiet authority she commanded. It wasn't just what she said. One pundit noted, it was how she refused to let chaos define her. Late-night hosts couldn't resist replaying the moment, highlighting Greene's faltering smirk and Crockett's poised response, turning it into a national talking point. Even social media, with its relentless pace, amplified the contrast between the two. Greene's frozen expressions and abrupt gestures became instant memes, shared with captions like, "When arrogance meets precision, and volume isn't strength." Meanwhile, Crockett's composure earned admiration across party lines. People praised her ability to respond without rage, to command respect without shouting. Her calm had shifted the power dynamic in a room built for spectacle, and audiences at home noticed. For many viewers, especially women of color and those who had long been underestimated, Crockett's performance was deeply personal. She had taken the common experience of being talked over, dismissed, or ridiculed, and transformed it into a demonstration of skill, intelligence, and dignity. Fans shared the clip as proof that composure could be weaponized, that respect could be reclaimed without aggression. Inside Congress, colleagues whispered about it in hallways, some with admiration, others in quiet awe. Greene's aura of intimidation had cracked, while Crockett's reputation surged. The moment transcended politics. It became a lesson in authority, presence, and the impact of measured response. Yet, beyond the laughter and the viral attention, there was something more. This was not just a comedy of errors for Greene or a witty rebuttal for Crockett. It was a signal of what could happen when intelligence, patience, and courage intersected in a space designed for chaos. And in that intersection, a deeper resonance emerged. Yet beyond the laughter, this moment carried a much deeper meaning. The laughter that filled the chamber wasn't just amusement, it was release. It was the sound of truth cutting through spectacle, of intelligence prevailing over bluster, of courage triumphing over arrogance. For a moment, the room became more than a stage. It became a reminder that dignity still matters, that composure still carries weight, and that leadership is defined by action, not performance. Jasmine Crockett's calm, precise response had done more than silence an opponent. It had reframed the narrative. In a world where chaos often dominates headlines, her measured words became a quiet revolution. They proved that strength doesn't have to roar. It can resonate in silence, in thoughtful pause, in the confidence of knowing your purpose and refusing to be derailed. Her performance symbolized more than one hearing or one viral clip. It represented a new generation of leadership, articulate, fearless, and guided by principle rather than optics. Crockett reminded the nation that integrity and intelligence can reclaim spaces long dominated by theatrics and ego. She became proof that one person's poise can shift the energy of an entire institution, inspiring others to hold their own, to rise above provocation, and to insist on respect without compromise. The room eventually returned to order. The cameras moved on, and the internet continued to hum with reactions. But the echo of that moment lingered. It wasn't just a victory for Crockett, it was a reaffirmation of values the nation often forgets in the frenzy of politics. In that laughter, America remembered something that grace can still but win. The laughter that erupted in that congressional chamber wasn't just a moment, it was a statement. It was the sound of poetic justice, the audible proof that arrogance can be dismantled with intelligence, composure, and courage. For those watching, it wasn't just entertainment, it was validation. A reminder that standing firm, even in the face of mockery or intimidation, can shift the balance of power and inspire millions. Moments like these resonate because they reflect what many of us feel but rarely see enacted on a national stage. It's the triumph of dignity over spectacle, of reason over noise, and of principle over provocation. And now, it's your turn to join the conversation. Share this video, comment what this moment meant to you, and reflect on how courage and composure can transform even the tensest situations. Your voice, like Crockett's, matters. The story doesn't end here. Every like, every share, every discussion keeps the energy of that chamber alive, reminding the world that integrity still commands attention. We've seen one woman shift the tone of a room, change the narrative, and leave a lasting imprint on history. But there are countless voices like hers waiting to be amplified, countless stories of resilience, intelligence, and courage yet to inspire the world. If you believe dignity deserves the mic, subscribe, share, and stay tuned, because voices like Jasmine Crockett's are just getting started. And when those voices rise, when reason meets courage, when truth meets patience, the world listens. Join us in witnessing it. Join us in sharing it. And remember, in a world that often celebrates chaos, grace and intelligence still have the power to win.